In a recent corporate simulation, 15 early career analysts at a professional services firm were handed a standard assignment: evaluate a potential acquisition target. They had 2 hours and full access to a suite of generative AI platforms to complete the due diligence. Every single analyst utilized the AI tools exactly as trained. They formulated precise prompts, rapidly extracted data, and produced highly polished professional deliverables. This diagram maps the outcome of that simulation. You can see the 15 analysts split into 2 starkly different groups. 12 confidently recommended moving forward with the acquisition, while only 3 recommended walking away. The target company was explicitly designed with a quiet regulatory exposure, a fatal flaw requiring cross-domain synthesis. Because the AI was not prompted to look for this specific liability, it bypassed the risk entirely. The 12 analysts followed the AI right past the danger. The successful minority did not have access to better technology. They caught the exposure because they maintained an independent cognitive framework, allowing them to ask the AI questions it could not generate on its own. Modern knowledge work is fracturing. A widening performance chasm is separating the workforce, and traditional corporate assessment systems are completely blind to it. On one side is the AI-trained worker. This is a professional who layers generative tools on top of their existing workflows to execute familiar tasks with greater speed and higher polish. On the other side is the AI-native worker. They possess a distinct judgment architecture. They approach problem-solving in a way that allows them to tackle complex, ambiguous challenges that the AI-trained worker wouldn't even know how to start. This divide has nothing to do with age. A 50-year-old executive can be highly AI-native, while a 20-something recent graduate is entirely AI-trained. It also has nothing to do with deep technical knowledge or coding expertise. Measuring who has access to these platforms, or who can operate them competently, no longer predicts success. The defining metric is the invisible judgment architecture used to govern those tools. To understand this gap, we have to look at how cognitive resources are allocated the exact moment a new task is assigned. The AI-trained workflow runs linearly, from assignment directly to AI generation, then final packaging. But the AI-native workflow hits a decomposition node first, fracturing the problem into AI-appropriate and human-appropriate tracks. AI outputs loop backward, colliding with the worker's independent mental model for validation. This operational split appears across entirely distinct industries. An AI-trained developer uses code generation to write faster boilerplate, while an AI-native developer uses it to surface implementation trade-offs and stress test architectural edge cases. The AI-trained worker uses technology to operate faster within known boundaries. The AI-native worker uses it to expand the problem space itself. When dealing with highly structured, routine tasks, prioritizing speed provides a measurable organizational advantage. This bell curve maps an AI's training distribution. The thick center represents reliable patterns. The thin tails represent novel, high-stakes problems. AI-trained workers drive straight into these unreliable edges, accepting plausible nonsense. But AI-native workers detect the boundary, stopping to divert into manual verification. This independent verification allows them to defend their recommendations to skeptical stakeholders. They reconstruct the underlying reasoning from scratch, rather than attempting to translate an opaque algorithmic black box. In high-stakes environments, judgment is the binding constraint. Prioritizing speed without rigorous cognitive verification turns a productivity tool into an organizational liability. If this performance gap is generating such severe risk, why are massive corporate upskilling programs failing to correct it? This matrix maps corporate training failures. First, the transfer problem. Procedural prompting skills don't build the adaptive expertise needed to judge outputs. Second, the dosage problem. Expertise requires sustained development, not one-off workshops. Third, the context problem. Generic AI principles fail in domain-specific scenarios. Relying on natural, on-the-job experience fails because AI judgment errors rarely produce immediate blowback. Without tight, immediate feedback loops, workers never receive the correction necessary to adjust their over-reliance on the tools. Companies are spending millions to train their workforce on basic operational tasks that will become obsolete table stakes within 18 months, entirely ignoring the critical cognitive judgment required to survive. Closing this gap requires abandoning standard workplace learning assumptions and deploying targeted, high-fidelity simulations. The most counterintuitive design principle is sequence. Workers must establish core domain judgment first before generative tools are ever introduced into their workflow. This diagrams productive struggle. AI tools are available but cannot solve the problem alone. The AI output hits a rigid synthesis block, forcing human intervention. These traps feed back a precise metric of judgment quality rather than completed tasks. True AI readiness does not eliminate the cognitive demand placed on the worker. It shifts that demand from generating answers to ruthlessly interrogating them. The market implications here are severe. Basic operational proficiency with AI platforms is rapidly commoditizing. As language models grow exponentially more powerful, a counterintuitive economic reality emerges. The financial returns on sharp human judgment, knowing exactly how and when to offload cognitive work, will increase, not decrease. The global supply of general AI-trained personnel is currently ballooning, driving their market value down. Meanwhile, workers capable of independent cognitive synthesis remain incredibly scarce. The window to build this capability is right now, while the divide is still bridgeable through deliberate, simulated practice. Access to technology, tools, and basic training is flattening across every industry. Moving forward, AI native judgment is the ultimate durable competitive